you are now afraid of them. So kind of this theme's week's Thursday Night Live is all about kind of like those fears that come in from past lives. So it's kind of like, interesting. So if you have one of those fears that you're kind of like, let me ask about this, I'm going to talk to you about some of the most common fears that come in, are fears that people have. Then we're going to talk about like the past life part of this. So usually people have fears related to animals, and this could be, I will say the most common ones are usually spiders, dogs, lions, birds, rats, and insects in the animal family. Related to our natural environments are usually like heights, thunder, darkness, and too much light. Let's see, the next one is injuries related to like fears related to like injuries that are like blood related, medical issues, like having to have injections or broken bones or falls, or something like that, something where like someone fell and hurt themselves. And then the last one is usually fear of kind of like one of those, hello Miss Kathy, is kind of like those fears that are kind of like our own personal ones, kind of like our own personal sounds, I guess is the best way to put it, like choking. Like if you're choking, like people can get like super panicked if they're choking, or even if they drank water too fast and they're kind of like gets caught for just a second, they can like over panic over this. Loud noises, and then drowning is the third one. So these are the most common ones, but let's talk about like all things kind of interesting in this department of like those past life fears. Now I will tell you, when I talk to people and they have a lot of fears surrounding dogs or cats, like normal dogs and cats, what I will get is kind of one of the things that happens is that they will come in with a lifetime where a dog or a cat hurt or killed them in a previous life. I had a client not too long ago that was mauled by a dog in a previous life, and they were never able to get over it, and to this day they are scared to death of dogs, especially large dogs. So that makes it like very hard where he cannot come to my house because I have a large dog. So it's kind of one of those funny, we always have to do our readings like over the phone or over the internet, because him just even hearing my dog or seeing my dog, even though she's the sweetest thing in the world, it's one of those like he gets overwhelmed by it because in a previous life he was killed by a dog. So that's kind of one of those interesting ones. One of the cats come in, and they are usually not the ones that are causing the death or whatever else, but a lot of times I would say in the last like 200 or 300 years, when people had babies that passed, usually the cat was near them, and usually the cat is near that person. Usually infants are kind of more like protecting your energy, or I'm keeping you safe or whatever else. But a lot of times if they were to pass, like if that child were to pass very young, they would say that the cat stole their soul. And so a lot of people had fears about cats. So even though they might have cats in the barn, but they wouldn't have cats in their home where they used to do that all the time. Hello, Miss Carmen. So if you have some crazy fears, let me know what your crazy fears are. I will see what I can do, or kind of see what I feel with where you're at. The next one is, I will say, fear of being trapped in something. I think that's one that a lot of people have, kind of an interesting one. I think it really comes in from a lot of different areas. Being trapped in or locked into a place, sometimes that can be even someone who was imprisoned in a previous life, especially if they died in that prison, that can be overwhelming for them. I will say kind of one of the interesting ones as well is if they were in a building that collapsed partially or something like that, and they were trapped in there, they will feel very, very trapped. I do have a client who was trapped in a off-planet, different life, but it's one of those, they were not able to get out of the vehicle they were traveling in, and it was kind of like an avalanche, kind of like submerged the car. So that was kind of that sort of thing. And so she always has to drive with, like, no matter how hot or cold it is, she always has to drive with her fingertips outside the window. I know. But she always, no matter what, no matter how hot or cold or wet or rainy or snowy or anything else, she's got to have her fingers in the door frame. So it's kind of like interesting. The fear of not being able to breathe is kind of an interesting one, and it can come in from different areas, because the not being able to breathe could be something that you were smothered. It could also come in from having like an illness where you couldn't like cough it out. Like if you had like pneumonia in a previous life, or consumption in a previous life, or black lung, something like that. You feel like you can't catch your breath, and you feel like you can't breathe. But sometimes when people have a fear of not being able to breathe, sometimes it's like they feel like they can't fill their lungs with air, or they can't get the air out of their lungs. And each of those kind of have a different way of kind of looking at it, I guess is the best way to put it. So it just really depends on like how is the breathing, or what is the breathing issue for you that's coming up. But sometimes I will tell you, if it's not in this life, it is definitely a past life one, because I kind of feel like there's a couple of past lives for you, Carmen, where things happen where you couldn't breathe, but I almost feel like there's a pressure on my chest when I'm talking about that. So I kind of feel like there's a pressure of like not necessarily there's like an illness in there, but I feel like a pressure or something that's holding my lungs down, so I literally can't breathe in that aspect. So that's an interesting one. My next one is, let's see, fear of snakes. A lot of people have fear of snakes. And sometimes it's because they've been bitten by a snake, or they've had a snake near them when they've passed. I've had a couple of clients that passed. It was a husband and wife, and they both passed in a previous life together, and they kind of fell into a snake pit. It's one of those, a lot of people had snake pits for different reasons. Sometimes they would like an animal that they wanted to get rid of, like a coyote or something like that, they would like build a pit and put a couple of snakes in there. So all they had to do was to get the coyote to kind of run in that area. If they fell in the pit, then the snakes would kill them, and they didn't have to do anything. They could just bury everything. So that's kind of one of those things. And people have fallen into those. So it's one of those that kind of can be one of those kind of interesting ones. So Carmen says, I don't want my face covered or stay underwater for very long, getting worse as I got older. A lot of times when it's getting worse, it's one of those, like the year that it started getting worse is usually when you passed in a previous life. So if that is a certain age, that can also come in that perspective of like your whenever it started getting worse. Like it may be there all the way along for a little bit, and then kind of add to that kind of that fear of like when it started escalating is the year that it happened in a previous life. Let's go back. Orals, very interesting name. I love it. It says a fear of frogs. Fear of frogs would be usually it's not frogs itself, but it would be somewhere that like either you fell in water, or were submerged some area in like a boggy area, because that frogs are not in fast moving water. They're always in like a boggy, still pond or water. And so that can be one of those like interesting ones where fear of frogs would be kind of like being in that boggy area. You may also have a fear of leeches as well. And they would, kind of like bring out a lot of people have a fear of leeches because they use leeches for a long period of time when they were trying to heal illnesses, although it didn't always usually help that area. So the bog is what I kind of get with orals, as more kind of like that fear of like that frog area is more like you got stuck there or weren't able to get out of it, and all you could see was the frogs, and they wouldn't come near you. So it's like I can't like get out or get around them. Kathy is coming up with a very interesting one. She is scared of the dark, deep water, filled, panicked, yet I love being at the beach or around water. Kathy, I'm with you, girl. You and we are the same. Now, I will tell you that I love to be around water. I live on a lake, so I love, love, love water. I love going to the beach, but I don't want to be in the water. I will walk in the water, usually very, very cautiously, up to about my knees. And this one has gotten worse since I've gotten older. I will say probably age 25 or so is when it really started getting bad. So I know in a previous life, that's when it happened. Like that's when that happened. That fear of getting, being entrapped. Now for me, mine also comes in with fear, like that fear of the deep water because you can't really see down. But for me in a past life, I was shoved off a boat and I was eaten by a shark. So I also have a fear of sharks. I know. It's one of those, so like especially in water where you can't see, you know what I'm saying, like not being able to see any water that's like not clear where you can see, like a swimming pool I'm fine. It's when I go into like water that's like dirty or not able to see the bottom or be able to see very clearly. That is so that's kind of one of those interesting energies. But usually if you have the fear of the water, like the whatever type of water you're afraid of is usually what you passed in. So if it's like deep, dark water, you know what I'm saying, that can be the ocean. Because once you're out far enough in the ocean, you know, even if it's only 50 or 60 feet deep, it gets dark because the sunlight cannot penetrate down that far. And that's usually where a lot of people pass. And it can also, hey, Miss Tina, that can also be where, you know what I'm saying, like, or like rivers or something like that where you can't see, or lakes that have like a lot of moving water in it, so it kind of doesn't ever settle out, the energy. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Let me... Okay. Sandra is afraid of enclosed places. That's kind of being trapped or enclosed. Like I said, usually means that you were imprisoned in a previous life, or you were trapped or not able to get out. For you in particular, Sandra, I feel like kind of this weird energy that you were not allowed out. So that is kind of an interesting one, because usually I feel it, usually for most people, like being imprisoned, like they were put in prison for whatever reason. And so a lot of people kind of get that energy with that, like they can't get out. Well, for you, I feel like you were enclosed, like you were like locked up in your room, or you were locked up in a tower, or you were locked somewhere and you were not able, or you were not allowed to get out or see anything. And so I almost feel like when you're in that energy, it's almost this longing to be outdoors, this longing to be with natural things. Like I want to be connected to other things. So that can be kind of like interesting. Let's see. Michelle is saying the same thing. Miss Shine Brighter. Love the water, but don't want to get in it. And that's usually that fear of like something that attacked you. I almost feel like with Michelle's energy, I almost feel like something from underneath the water got you. And I don't necessarily feel shark, but it could be like an alligator or a fish of some type. So that can be kind of like one of those like, interesting. Okay, so let's see. Tina's saying, what about being afraid of someone is coming up behind you when your eyes are closed? I will say that anything that's kind of coming up behind you, like that, even eyes closed, eyes open, but kind of like where you don't see them or hear them, that can be one of those that can be kind of like being surprised. It could also be, what do they call it? Shanghai. That's what it's called. A lot of times in the 17 and 1800s, people would come up behind you and like put like a burlap bag over you or your head or whatever else, or a rope or something like that. And they would like, you know what I'm saying, like put it down so you couldn't move or whatever else. And they would put you on big ships or sell you into slavery or whatever it was. So it's kind of like that, being like entrapped, but it's one of those like you didn't see it coming, you didn't see that, so it's kind of like that fear of not seeing it come at you. Kathy says, weird thing is my son-in-law is a boat captain. Not necessarily, Kathy, because a lot of times, like people, like I said, a lot of people have this almost this weird love-hate relationship with water. So it's like we love water even if we don't want to be in the water. We want to be around the water because the water has like this amazing frequency of healing and harmony and that sort of thing. So we love the water, but we also have like a fear of the water because we've passed in it. So it's kind of like we're drawn to it because of the energy of it, but then we're also afraid of it at the same time, kind of like, wait a minute, I don't want to be in this energy. So that can be kind of like that crazy fear. Now, I will tell you a crazy fear that I have seen for a lot of people, and this one is really interesting, the fear of onions. I know. It's one of those you're just like, What? So I'm going to explain the fear of onions, because that is just one of those, like, the first time I heard it, I had a client, and we were talking about doing a group reading, and we met up for lunch, and she was like so adamant about none of her like food could have onions in it at all. And so she was just like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy, I can't have any onions in anything. But I will tell you, usually in anywhere from like the 1400s to about the 1800s, if you had an illness where you were coughing things out, what people would do is, like, they would cut an onion and they would put the onion facing you, so the onion would kind of like draw in whatever illness you had as you coughed it out, and the onion would turn black and decay and stuff like that. So if you had just like the flu or something like that, you probably felt better and you were on with your life. Now I will tell you, that is something that for a lot of people, like, they didn't get better. If they had a really bad illness, if they had black lung, or if they had some other type of like a major illness, they watched as they got sicker and sicker, those onions like rot and fall apart and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people have the fear of onions because of that. It's like, okay, I had no idea. Okay, let's go back to Miss Tina. Miss Tina says, oh wow, I feel that way sometimes when I'm meditating. Now, I will tell you, people, when you're meditating and you have like those fears come up, a lot of times I'll ask my angels to surround me even through the walls, but I usually like to have my back towards a wall when I'm meditating. Where no one can come up from behind me. That doesn't come in from a past life for me, it comes in from my current life. I had a lot of family members that like to come up and like surprise me from behind, so it always like jolted me out of like, oh my gosh, they're coming up, and they would kind of jump, kind of I don't want to say like jump at you, but kind of like want to startle you, want to make you afraid, might want to make you jump or leap or whatever else. So it's kind of like, oh, here they are. Okay, next is the fear of marriage. I know, interesting. Some people do have the fear of marriage or commitments, and this usually comes into from a past life where, for whatever reason, you were told you had to marry someone that you did not love. This can be anywhere from a royal life where you were told, like, you can't marry that person, you have to marry the king or queen of wherever country, blah, blah, blah. And so who you really, really loved had nothing to do with it. You married for the sake of the family, or the money of the family, or as Michelle says, fear of commitment, definitely. It's one of those. So it's kind of like that fear of getting into a marriage and not being able to get out of it. Because a lot of times, certain families, if you wanted out of the marriage, that's how you got out. Like, yeah, not in a good way. So a lot of people come in this lifetime with the fear of commitment or the fear of marriage because it was forced upon them in a previous life, and that can just be really overwhelming for their energy to kind of deal with that. So it's kind of like, oh no. This one kind of comes along with kind of like one of the interesting fears that I think a lot of people in this lifetime may have is almost a fear of getting older. And usually when, like, I don't mean like no one wants to look older, but it's one of those, a lot of times, like, it's not necessarily a fear. I mean a true, like, fear of getting older. Usually comes in from a lifetime where you had a position of power and like a king or a queen, and as you got older, your throne or your authority might be thrown into kind of like, well, they're not as strong as they used to be, or we need to overthrow them, or I may not feel as strong, that sort of thing. And so a lot of times, like, people literally have a fear of getting older. And I have seen this in both men and women, and I will tell you, more than anything else, I see this a lot in men. A lot of men have this fear of getting older, and they don't want to do like the shots or the lotions or potions or whatever else, but they have this true fear of getting older. And sometimes that comes in where a lifetimes where they literally act like a teenager, even if they're in their 50s or 60s. It's one of those, like, total teenager, total like total kid the whole time. You're kind of like, what? Yeah, that is because they had this fear of feeling like they were getting older because they were going to have to be a grown-up and they were going to have responsibilities, or they could have gotten overthrown at some point. So that sort of kind of thing. Interesting. One of the ones I think is kind of an interesting one, and I was talking to someone about it today, is kind of like the fear of germs. I feel this coming in. Usually this is people from a past life that died from something that was germ related or they felt was germ related. And interesting enough for me, a lot of times these people are now in this current life in the medical field. So usually my RNs or something like that will have like this kind of this very interesting fear of germs. Almost like they went into this because they wanted to understand germs better. So it's kind of like interesting, like, interesting. So that is kind of one of those interesting kind of energies. So I will tell you that's kind of one of those like, okay, let's interestingly deal with that. But I will tell you, like I said, it's usually like a fear of germs, or you know what I'm saying, like getting illnesses from other people. I'm kind of still on the medical field. If you have any others, let me know. I'll be more than happy to add you in. I will tell you kind of one of the interesting fears that, so if you're joining, make sure you tell me what your weird fear is that doesn't make sense in this lifetime. One of those fears that does not make sense in this lifetime, it can be a very interesting one. Kind of one of those, yes, here we go. A fear of shots or needles. This can come in a lot of different aspects. I have a friend who's really close that is terrified of needles, and it was because in a previous life they got stuck with a long needle from a plant and they died from it. It was one of those like poisonous plants, and so they got stuck in the arm with it, and it caused like an issue or a pain in there, and they were like, it literally, they could see it like growing up their arm into their body and pass from it. So it's kind of like this very scary kind of energy. This also can come in from previous lives where people were given shots or like shots that would like hurt them or put them out in some way, kind of like if you were in, like, kind of, you kind of think about it now like a sanatorium or something like that, where they want to keep, or the psychiatric ward, where they're doing it like they're pumping you full of stuff to kind of keep you calm, cool, and sedate, where like your mind is still racing, but your body doesn't necessarily react to it in a very interesting way. That's kind of one of those like interesting. One of the ones I think is a very interesting one is people feeling like they're being overjudged. That is one of those like interesting, overjudged. This can come in some very interesting ways. Usually it's a lifetime where you had a life that was out in the public eye, and this could also be, hello, Miss Shelley. It could be a lifetime where like you were like a star, or you were someone of authority, or you were a king or a queen or a princess or a king or a prince or whatever it is, and people were always judging you, always like, oh, I can't believe they wore this, or I can't believe that they wore that. That is probably the number one I get with this one. But I will also say people that feel like overjudged usually also have a past history with a narcissistic personality. So that's kind of like interesting. Narcissistic personalities can overjudge us and really make us feel really small, and a lot of times because it's overwhelming to our energy to deal with them, it's something that we may bring into several lifetimes before we completely get rid of that one. So that can be a very interesting one. One of the other ones I will say is kind of, and they're completely separate, but people kind of put them together oddly, but they're really, really not. So a fear of success or a fear of failure. They seem like they could be kind of the same thing, but they're really, 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 really not. So someone who is like a fear of success, meaning that they want to be a success, they want to gain that thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be an authority on this, or I want to be the best doctor there is at this, or I want to be the best attorney, or I want to be the best at whatever, but they're almost afraid of that success. They're afraid of what's going to come from that. So they really crave it, and a lot of times they'll get there, but they're also usually very paranoid. Someone's going to knock me off, kind of like I'm going to be the king of the hill, but someone's going to knock me off. That sort of thing. Hey, Miss Kimberly. I haven't seen you in forever, sweet lady. So, and then fear of failure is usually someone who is like, they are terrified of failing. So any little thing that they fail at it's a huge thing for them. Like, it's a lot of times like they just can't get over it. I had a client who had 3 businesses. I think it's 3 businesses at the time. It's one of those, and 2 of the businesses were doing phenomenal well. But there was one business that just wasn't doing as well and that sort of thing. And he was always concerned about the one that was failing and not the 2 that were doing well. And it was like the other 2, it's like, oh, they're doing well and they're always growing and they're always this. But this one right here, it's almost like this is the crazy one. I can't get going in the right direction. And it was just something that he had the hardest time trying to like reconcile in his head of like, this isn't going to be a success. I should have 3 successful businesses. And we were able to kind of turn that around a little bit and kind of like really talk about like some of the success that he's had and some of the life lessons that he learned and all of that. It's one of those, that is one of those cool ones. I am adding online on the side, if you get a chance to look at it, wherever all the comments are. I am going to be having my autumn group reading here at the Marriott Town Center in Sugar Land. It is just being announced. We're so excited. In Town Center here in Sugar Land. If you want to purchase your tickets, you are able to. We are starting to sell tickets. We are getting really excited about all of this. It is going to be October 28th. 2023. This is actually my first one open to the public in 2023. I've had a ton of private ones, family ones, that sort of thing, but this is going to be my first one open to the public in 2023. So I'm like, yay, I'm so excited. And it's kind of one of those fun things, like fun things you get to join us. I am going to be having not only my products there, I'm going to have other products there. I'm going to have other people come in, some other vendors that are some amazing vendors. I'm so excited about some of them. Having crystal jewelry, some other things that are going to be coming in, and as like those people get into position, I am going to give you their information. Make sure that you sign up for my newsletter. That's always a fun one. Anybody with any other past life questions, any other fears from past lives that are coming up, Michelle's like, don't want to miss it. Oh, Michelle's not going to miss it. I guarantee you. She's already got her ticket. She's coming. I already told her, get your ticket. We're going, because we are going to have so much fun. We are going to have so much excitement. My team is coming together like nobody's business. I'm so excited. I am ready for this one. Sandra saying the fear of fire. Usually the fear of fire comes in some different areas. I will say a fear of fire comes in usually because you might have been burned in a previous life or had a lot of fire issues. Like that was used to be our number one source. But I will tell you that literally the fear of fire for some people comes in like Miss Sandra. She was around during Mount Vesuvius in a previous life. So she has a fear of fire coming from the sky. Yeah, interesting. So coming in from all around and kind of like fire where you can't even see it, and then it's all of a sudden there. Tina's like, I am so excited for this group reading. I am so excited for the group reading. I am so excited. But I will tell you, during a group reading, I was doing some videos today of kind of like some of my favorite questions from group readings. So you will see those coming out over the next few months, and we're so excited about all of this coming up. Yay! We are so excited about this one. My team is just, we're excited. We have been working on products and all kinds of stuff, so we are ready. We are ready and ready to start this. This is going to be amazing. Okay, guys, I thank y'all so much for joining me today, and I know that we'll be talking again soon. We will start one more time. I will see you there. Make sure you get your ticket for the New Year, New You group reading.